Well, welcome back. If you made it through that last video, congrats. Because unedited, it was just under 40 minutes. So we'll see what it looks like when I'm done, but I really don't want to cut anything out of that. I mean, any of you who are familiar with me will know that I like rambling about things. Like, I love how all these things flow in with each other. So tangents are inevitable. I do have this to help keep me grounded, but I am going to ramble. These things could get really, really long. But I don't think I'm saying things that are invaluable. I think that everything that I'm bringing up um, is necessary to at least have a pin in to be able to tie the whole picture together by the time we get done, to actually have you something to observe, to work with, and, some tips and tricks along the way. It is really bright right now, so I'm obviously squinty. That is fine, but I like this little spot. It's a good little spot. So, first one we talked about the state of being, the human condition, whatever things trapped in. The last video we talked about self-importance. We talked about the great games. We talked about balancing stress with nutrition, activity, environment, and interstate. We talked about the 4 kinds of love, and we talked about the 4 ways of humanity. And so the big takeaway from that one was the concept of agape, or understanding, or unconditional love, which is you do not put conditions on the love. You understand the conditioning that you and other humans are in. So you give them love in understanding, not in Paya, not in Philos, not in Eros, like we talked about, but understanding love of that condition. And you don't hold them, you know, what's the word? Because yes, we hold them accountable, but we don't blame them. There is a distinction between accountability and blame, because everyone is only doing what they feel to be right, proper, or justifiable at the moment of the doing, based on the awareness they have at the time. So we don't hate them for what they're doing. We can correct them. We can stop them, even if it is something that is destructive, if they are wrong. But we do not have to hate them. It can kill our eros love for them, our romantic love. It can kill our familial love. It can kill our like of the person. But agape is an intentional, never-ending, unconditional understanding of the human condition within self and others, so that one does not fall into hate and all of its destructive properties. So we're going to build a second tier on top of the first 7 that we talked about, which was the complainer, right? We had entitlement, we had appeasement, we have submission to authorities, we have self-improvement, and we have blame. And then topping that off, we come to the decision of self-importance, okay? And these are all trying to get us the non-disturbance, right? That we believe that we can be non-disturbed. We're just trying to be happy, however you want to word it. It's the same thing. And all trying to get this. So now we want to look at, well, these are elements of our psyche, okay? They were generated to protect us as children, as infants, as irresponsible, immature beings, to protect us. That's why they were there. That's why they came about. But the thing is we don't let them go. We don't stop playing with kids' toys when we grow up. We're not taught how to do that. It is by design, we're not taught these things. We're not taught to look for these things. We're not taught to actually mature, you know. And so we're going to look at some things. The way this came about was I was writing down my understandings of those things and giving them, symbolism and things of that nature to really help me work with them. And I began to fall into despair, because I don't know if you're familiar with Invader Zim, but there is a scene where Gur, the little robot, these and alien invaders who were jokingly sent to Earth to take over it, the robot is told to go monitor Earth's broadcasts. And so Gur goes up and he sits on the couch and he's upset about it. And he's just changing the channel and he just goes, observing, 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 observing. And that really resonated. That silly little thing really resonated with me. because that's what I felt like I was doing. I was just like observing how much of a flesh puppet I am. Like I have no will of my own. Everything that I'm doing is automatic. Everything I'm doing is resulting from decades of conditioning and illusions and authorities and all of those things. And I began to wonder, is this just what it is? I'm just for the rest of my life just watching and just seeing these things, and yes, as I really, really identify them or really get down to them, you know, they're kind of dissipating and things. But is this it? Is it just okay? I'm just supposed to watch these things for the rest of my life and just observing, 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 and and so I began to wonder: is there any good news to this? Am I just is this all just trying to be a self-monitoring robot? Uh, and as things progressed, I began to intuit hints that there was something else that can be done along with this. And I began to kind of play with, well, what would that look like? If we're looking at these six attributes, these seven attributes in the human psyche, what, since they are polarized to these illusions, how might we integrate them, resituate them, reorient them to where those energy centers, those energy bodies, these seven actually do correspond with the supposed seven chakras. Okay, so it's the idea of this is your energy body. These are the various points on your energy body, and they have been co-opted and misused by the personality because it was trying to protect you. You aren't told about these things, and so now it is gone haywire. So how can we pull these things back around? So I began to wonder, and I'm going to go backwards with these. We're going to start at seven, and we're going to work our way down to one. Because the first thing, as we said in the last one, was agape, understanding, to decide, you know what? I want to understand what's going on within me. I mean, I'd also like to understand what's going on with other people and what's going on in the world, but like, really, the best thing that I can do, like the most effective thing I can do, is to inquire into self to understand self. And so this is the what we call the seventh decision. Okay. The initial seventh decision was, well, if all of these things are true, then I am important. And it is important that I get what I want right now. Okay. So in this, the first reevaluation that happens is the reevaluation of the seventh decision. Instead, you can find another way to word it, however works for you, what that really connects and makes you feel it. Okay. But the idea of I would like to understand self, others, and life. Like that's what I would like to do. I'd like to decide to pursue those things. And instead, seeing that maybe I'm not the most important thing. Maybe it's not all about me getting what I want right now. Perhaps there's more going on here. Let's look into that and understand. So the first reevaluation is of that seventh decision, and that is what is going to drive all of the other reevaluations and uh, resonances and integrations as we move down this thing. So I'm going to read this little section I wrote here. Observation of the human condition may lead to a desire to understand the self as part of X. Okay. This interest, instead of just me separate in this world against the world kind of thing, instead seeing, understanding the self as a part of X. This, uh, this interest will gradually affect the polarity of self-importance, selfishness, and separation to one of inquiry. Okay. So this is the idea of like deciding you want to do this, deciding that you don't think that you are the most important thing in the world and you'd like to actually understand what's going on, changes your focus. And this begins to change how you view these other things. So we're going to go down through the others. Man, it has gotten really bright. I am squinting. Okay, I decided that if I moved the camera, then it's probably going to get a glare on it. So we're just going to squint through this, okay? All right, so the number seven would be understanding, from self-importance to understanding. To actively use agape to interact with the fragmented self counters self-importance. Okay. So then we would have 6 is knowledge of as I have this little thing. I'm going to go ahead and say it. When it comes to talking about mysticism and non-dualism and everything kind of being inextricably bound together, I we know what I would write. I would be like, oh, self as life, and I was like, well, self in life, you know, and I'm using life in all caps, like with X, just like the whole thing. Okay, self with life, self as life, in life, of life. So I just started putting as slash of slash with slash in. So knowledge as with in of knowledge of other as within life and X. Okay. So it's the idea that others are also a part of X, and starting to see that, have the knowledge that this is all working together. The idea of interdependence. You could look at biodiversity, you could look at ecosystems and things like that, and see the flow of X within itself. Okay. And so you start to gain this knowledge of everything that is not self is also a part of life or X. And that begins to counter blame, because if everything else is also me, then I am not going to blame it. I'm not going to hate it. I'm not going to lash out at it. Okay. So seeing everything else as also a part of me begins to lessen my aggression towards others. Oh, thank you for that. Oh, well, there it comes back again. Okay. 5 is wisdom of self as within of life or X counters self-improvement. Okay. Because if you have the wisdom, the inner insight that I am a part of X, I am a unique avatar expression of essentially the universe expressing here. Okay. So why should I try to be like everybody else? Like, why should I be destroying what is manifesting here in order to copy and mimic all these other things, instead of allowing life, like X, everything, to express naturally and beautifully in and responsibly in this one? Because if we are X, then that imbues us with a responsibility. It's not a flippantness, you know. So that counters self-improvement. 4, you have counsel of as within life, okay, or X. This counters submission to authority. So you're always going to have that chatter in the mind that has come from outside and from inside that is going to try and tell you this is what you should do. And number 4 usually tells us we need to submit to those authorities, like what is telling us to do that. Instead, this encourages us, the integration element encourages us to see those things, since they are also of life, I am of life, then there is counsel coming from life, and I can listen to it, I can hear it. That doesn't mean I have to believe it, that doesn't mean that I have to act on it, but I can listen, I can hear the counsel. If we want to go like the old things, the council, and you had Caesar, you're the Caesar, the council's sitting there, they've all got their own perspectives, they're arguing back and forth, Caesar makes the decision. Okay, now this may not be historically accurate, I'm just using it as an example, so just deal with it. Okay. You are the determiner of truth and value within this localized point, your localized point. Okay. You get to choose. You can listen to everybody else, but you determine what is true and valuable. So this counters the tendency to submit to authorities by instead taking on the responsibility of, yes, listening to other counsel, but making the decision yourself. Number 3, the reverence of as within life. Okay. This counters appeasement, because appeasement is seeing others as wanting things that if you give them that, then they will give you what you want. So it is a form of manipulation. Okay. It of course starts off innocently as a child, but as it grows into adulthood, it is manipulative. And so with reverence for life, with everything being life, right? All of us are life. We have a reverence for that. Then that is going to counter our entitlements by empowering one to act responsibly and honorably, rather. Or sorry, I apologize. I read the wrong one. My handwriting's horrible. It's all in together. Reverence, sorry, counters the manipulative tactics of pleasing. Okay, so you see that this other person is an expression of life, and you don't want to abuse yourself. You don't want to take yourself for granted. You don't want to be cruel to yourself, to life. So it's not you revere them and you put them on a pedestal, but you have a reverence where you don't want to disrupt others. Like, yes, you will have to do the social dynamic interplay of concessions and stuff like that here and there, but do it deliberately out of a reverence in cooperation and interdependence as within of life, rather than just trying to manipulate life to get what you want out of it. Okay. And so that begins to counter pleasing. Two is the ability of as within life. Okay. Because this counters the entitlement by empowering one to act responsibly and honorably. Okay. Because the second one was entitlement, right? We act either miserable or threatening to get what we feel we are entitled to. But if we have the ability of life, then we're not entitled to anything. We are empowered to act. And it also reminds us that instead of being entitled, we don't deserve any of these things. We're given these things. These are gifts. These are privileges. And privileges can be removed. Privileges sometimes require upkeep, and sometimes it doesn't matter if you do what you need to do to earn it, you don't get the privilege. Okay. You're not entitled to it. So the idea of I have the ability to work within life, as within life, to my dog saw somebody on a bike. Um, to uh, to get what I would want, but to do so in accordance with life rather than fighting against life and arguing with life and feeling entitled to things, instead appreciating the gift of life. And the last one is expression. Okay. We are an expression of as within life. And this counters seeing it that way, counters complaining by reminding us what we are. Okay. We are everything that is, was, and will be. Okay. Why are we sitting here complaining about it? Why are we asking others to do things for us that we are responsible enough to actually act on ourselves? Why? Well, because we don't see ourselves as integrated as an expression of X, as an expression of the whole life play that is happening here. Instead, we're seeing ourselves as separate and we're alone and it's us against the world. Okay. So, in recognizing, well, I can express through complaining, but what would a mature, responsible expression of life force be? Would it be complaining? Maybe, maybe not. So the dynamic interplay of these aims can bring about shifts in the perspective, approach, and actions towards self, others, and life. Okay. So as you work with these, because you're observing, let's say you observe yourself complaining. Okay. You're at the movie theater and you didn't get the tickets, the seats that you wanted. Okay. And so you just, oh God, I can't believe, man, just people getting here early. I can't, and you're complaining and you see self you're watching the personality go. You as the soul are watching the personality play out in the mind. Because one thing I want to make distinct here is the mind, I said, is a radio without an off switch. The mind thinks in the same way that the heart beats and the lungs breathe. Okay. It just does that. You don't have to tell your heart to beat. You don't have to tell your lungs to breathe. If you did, you would die. Okay. You don't have to tell your brain to think. It's just going to do it. It is a problem solving meat machine. Okay. It will perceive things. It will create problems. It will create solutions. And that's what it's done. It's why it's so amazing. It's so amazing. But we haven't been taught how to use it. And so, you know, you observe these things. You catch yourself complaining and you go, oh, I see that. I see, I wasn't, I want to do this. You can even see them pairing up, especially the ones on the same side. So it's like, oh, what did I do? I complained. Oh man, I didn't get the tickets. I'm going to have crappy seats. Complaint. I should have gotten one of the middle ones. Like I deserve one of those. So that's number two. And then you say, oh, it's all these people, they got here first, and it's all their fault. Now you have all three sides of the A side, or all three aspects of the A side, all directing towards this. And if you see that, and you could see, oh, wow, look at the personality making these connections based off of what it believes is true and valuable, and this is the way it's expressing. Well, you start there at number six. Okay, well, everything else is life. It's all one. They're not, and I extend agape to them. They were not trying to take the best seat from me. They were trying to get the best seat for themselves. They thought that was the right thing. Okay, I'm not going to hate them, so I'm not going to blame them. Come back down to two. Am I entitled to this? No, I'm not entitled to the best seat in the theater. Okay, if I happen to get there early enough, I might get that. Okay, and that's also just subjective as far as the best thing. But anyway, just for the sake of this, I'm not entitled to that. If I wanted that seat, I could have came earlier. I could have reserved it online. There are things I could have done to secure that privilege, but I am not entitled to that. And then you can come down to, well, complaining definitely isn't helping express this. This is not a mature, mystical way of expressing self. Instead, let's express, just be grateful that I'm here. Like I'm so glad to be here at the theater. This is a movie I've wanted to see for a long time. I hope it's going to be good. Let's just go in and go on that ride, rather than diluting the potential for enjoyment of that thing because you are so locked into, oh, I just can't believe I got this bad seat. Everything is bad from there on. If you stay in that, it ruins the whole experience. But if you can look at it, see it for what it is, and then apply these things to kind of just adjust the polarity, adjust your perspective a little bit so that you see it differently, and perhaps something else will seem true. And when that really seems true, perhaps a feeling will come. And when that feeling comes, perhaps it will reveal, like, wow, this is so much more beautiful than I was expecting, because I had all these expectations stacked on top of it. I couldn't see what it was. Okay, so that's how you use these things. There is a third tier that came about just a couple years ago. Well, it was about 5 years ago, I guess. I initially started working on this version of these things in 2017. These 7 came to me in 2018, shortly after beginning that. But the others didn't come until about 2020. And to me, they represent more of like what the personality begins to look like over time working with these things, and what the attributes are there, and why they're actually beneficial towards interconnecting and interweaving with all of this. So that will be another video for another day, perhaps tomorrow. I don't know. Obviously, I've got some editing to do with the last video and this one. And yeah, thank you for hanging around. Any questions, please ask. I'm enjoying the heck out of this, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. Peace.